The biggest name that was still available heading into the final day of the 2023 trade deadline and Justin Verlander is officially off the board. The Houston Astros trade for his services again, trading away two of their top prospects and really going all in to try and win the AL West and hopefully another World Series this year in their mind. And they have a very tough American League to try and get through. The Rangers have been very, very good this year, just picked up Max Scherzer. The Angels are really trying to win this year in what could be the last year of Shohei Ohtani in the Halo uniform, and the entire AL East is dominant this year, as every team has a better record than any team in the AL Central right now, and even then, the Twins or Guardians could surprise come October. All you need to do is get hot at the right time, and you can end up being a successful team that wins a World Series. The AL is very, very deep. The Astros knew they needed another starting pitcher to head into October. Luis Garcia, Lance McCullers Jr., Jose Urquidy all out for extended periods of time on the 60-day IL. And Justin Verlander is both familiar with the Houston system, but also provides a very, very experienced arm. It's not going to come cheap, and although the Mets are covering $54 million of his contract, the Mets are really buying prospects at this deadline with the big money that they spent this offseason and the offseason prior. The Astros are still going to be on a hook for a decent amount of that contract. He's in the first year of a 2-year, $86.67 million contract. He has a $35 million vesting option for 2025 if he pitches 140 or more innings next year. So he's entering his age 41 season. There is a decent chance he doesn't get to that number. He has been dominant his entire career, but 41 is old for a pitcher. We haven't seen a lot of really high quality starting pitchers go ahead and have a successful career at age 41. So you don't really know what you're going to get out of Justin Verlander even next year, let alone in 2025. So I'm not going to count that option is going to happen, but it's definitely a possibility. And to have that potential extra year of control of an elite arm who won the Cy Young just last year, the Astros knew what they were going for, and they should be very happy with getting a player who has 3 no-hitters, an MVP, Rookie of the Year, won the Pitcher's Triple Crown, and has 3 Cy Young awards. That's just an incredible resume and a no-doubt first ballot Hall of Famer. It might be one of the best pitchers of our generation, if not the best pitcher of the current generation. Obviously, to get a big name like Justin Verlander, the Astros had to give up a lot, and they really did. The Mets went out and got 2 very solid prospects for Justin Verlander that are going to make an impact at the major league level sooner rather than later. But before I go ahead and discuss these trades, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button either in the top right or bottom right corner, or leave a like on the video. It really helps a lot to go ahead and grow a channel, and you'll get more recommendations for baseball content like this if you do. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It will really, really help out. Without further ado, let's talk about the 2 players the Mets got back in this Justin Verlander trade. The Astros 2022 draft class was stacked. Even though they had the 25th highest bonus pool allocation, they left with a ton of talent, and that really starts at the top with their first pick and 28th overall, Drew Gilbert, a center fielder out of Tennessee. He signed for $2.5 million, and he was the star of the 2022 Tennessee Volunteer Baseball team that was number 1 for a decent portion of the year. He was a two-way player in high school and probably could have gotten drafted as a pitcher coming out of high school, but he had a really strong commitment to Tennessee, fell to the 35th round back when the draft was still 40 rounds, didn't sign with his Mets, which are from his home state, and ended up going to Tennessee and really dominated after becoming a full-time center fielder. And even as someone whose college allegiance lies directly in opposition to the Tennessee Volunteers, I love Drew Gilbert coming out of school. He was an amazing talent, and he's really proved that in the minor leagues as well. In 2022, he only was able to play 10 games between rookie ball and single A before he ended up dislocating his elbow, running into an outfield wall trying to make a play. But that really goes and describes his game pretty well. He's a very aggressive player. He's willing to go and put his body on the line to go ahead and make a play. He's also very passionate. Mets fans are going to love this dude's passion. He fits perfectly when I envision what a Met fan would love. He is exactly that. When you play against him, you're going to hate him, but when he's on your team, he is going to be someone you're going to root for hard. He brings a lot of fiery energy, and although sometimes he needs to rein in it a little bit, he is going to be a spark plug in that locker room to really get people excited and ready to play baseball for the New York Mets for the foreseeable future. And that's just the style of player he is. He's a fiery guy. He's going to make plays. He's going to excite you on both sides of the ball. And his left-handed swing is something that scouts really, really, really like. He's not going to hit for a ton of average. He's not going to hit for a ton of power, but he's going to be a plus guy in both regards. His bat speed and his bat-to-ball contact skills, he really barrels up a lot of baseballs, is going to increase that power because he doesn't have a ton of raw power. He's 5'9", so he's not naturally going to have a lot of power, but especially for his height, the Astros have filled him out even more than he already has been, and he has decent raw power. It's close-ish to average, but it's not anything that's going to excite you. And it's really his bat speed and ability to barrel up the baseball, as I already mentioned, paired with elite exit velocity numbers, that's really going to go and potentially make him a 20 home run guy a year. His speed's also above average, although he's not going to steal a ton of bags right now. He only has 10 stolen bases on the year. That number could definitely go up as he grows and develops and matures as a player. He's 22 years old right now. He'll probably make the major leagues at the end of 24, beginning of 25, if I had to guess. So there's still time for him to go ahead, be a young player in the major leagues, and start to really refine his stolen base ability. I think a fair number to shoot for is 20 to 25 stolen bases a year. I think he's a pretty solid 20-20 guy who's not going to hit for a ton of power, not going to steal a ton of bags, but he is going to be someone that you're going to really like seeing in that maybe 2 slot in a lineup, really be a spark plug and get your offense going at the big league level. That speed also translates to his defense, and that's really where it shines. He can go and cover a lot of ground in center field, and he has a plus arm, not elite, but better than just an above average arm that really goes and pairs well with his center field defense. He has an absolute cannon, and pairing that with his above average defense is really going to make him a mainstay in center field for the long term. And although some scouts would really like to see him as one of the elite corner outfielders in the major league game, I still think he profiles as a center fielder, and at the very least, you want to keep him there as long as you can just to see what you have. And if he does take a step back at some point, you still know that he has taken a step back, and you have to put him in a corner outfield where he should play elite defense and be one of the best defensive corner outfielders in the game. Although MLB Pipeline's rankings aren't updated as often as some other sites like Baseball America, Drew Gilbert is ranked 68th overall and the first ranked Houston Astros prospect. I expect him to stay in that range. I think he is a very exciting prospect. He's one of my favorite minor leaguers just because he's fun to watch. And as a fan of an AL West team that's not the Houston Astros, I was really disappointed when the Astros picked him, and I am ecstatic that he is out of the AL West now, and the Mets hopefully can develop him and be a all-star caliber center fielder for a long time, because I think he has that potential and can very easily reach it with the New York Mets. 10 rounds later, in the 11th round of the 2022 draft, the Astros took another lefty center fielder in Ryan Clifford, who fell due to his strong commitment to Vanderbilt, but ended up signing for a little over $1 million, which is about second-round draft money. Now remember, after you're picked in the 11th round or later, Clifford was an 11th round pick, any money that's signed over $150,000 from a team counts against your cap. So the Astros took a risk that they weren't going to be able to sign him and had to divert money away from some of their top picks to go ahead and acquire Ryan Clifford's services. So they did take a big risk, but it was something that they're willing to take, and it has paid off hugely. Clifford has played with the U.S. national team since he was 12, and he just has that big game experience that's really refined his ability to be a productive major leaguer at the next level. And although he's only in high A right now, the 20-year-old is someone I can really see flying up not only just the prospect ranks, but also throughout the minor league system as well. He could be in New York before you know it. Just like with Drew Gilbert, Ryan Clifford has a phenomenal batter's eye, and he likes to work the count. So although Gilbert is a fiery guy who is more likely to get on base after a couple pitches, Clifford is more likely to go ahead and work the count, make it a 7, 8, 9 pitch at bat, really make the pitcher make a mistake, and therefore he can go ahead and capitalize and punish on whatever mistake a pitcher delivers. He has phenomenal bat speed, and that pairs with above average raw power to really make him a plus power threat. He's knocked in 16 homers in just 58 games at high A, so he definitely has a big power stroke. And although he might project to be more of a right fielder or first baseman in the long run, especially now that Drew Gilbert ended up on his team, especially because he might end up having to be pushed out to that position, Ryan Clifford's a capable center fielder with an above average arm and decent enough fielding to stick at center field in the long term. Again, now that Drew Gilbert is a New York Met too, and you also have Brandon Nimmo, he'll probably profile more as a corner outfielder or a first baseman, but the potential is there. If the Mets trade Pete Alonso to get a big haul, Ryan Clifford could be their first baseman of the future, and they just traded away Marcana. Tommy Pham isn't a long-term answer. So Ryan Clifford has the playing time available to, in a year or two, really go ahead and be a top-notch player. He is incredibly athletic, and as he continues to mature and put on weight and bulk up, again, he's only 20 years old, that power will only increase, and he's going to be a very big power threat. But he'll also be able to hit for average. For instance, his slash run right now is 291, 399, 520, which is eerily close to the 345 mark that people really like. And those numbers add up to a really incredible 919 OPS and a 138 WRC+. The one big issue about Ryan Clifford going forward is that his walk rate plummeted since going from single A to high A in 2023. It's fallen from 20.7% to 8.4%, which is definitely concerning. But his strikeout rate, which granted is also high at around 25%, has stayed mainly constant. So it looks like pitchers are just attacking him a little bit more than they used to. And that's something that's just going to take a little bit of an adjustment for him to go ahead and get used to battling pitchers at a higher level. He might take a little bit of time to adjust to Double A when he makes the jump. He's definitely going to. And he's someone who people are very excited about. Some have him rated higher than Drew Gilbert. So it really is anyone's guess as to who will be the better player. But he is someone that scouts are really excited about. Someone who should probably get that walk rate down a little bit just with natural progression and getting a better feel for playing against better talent. And although he might struggle in the dump to Double A, which I'm projecting, as a lot of players do, I think he'll overcome that. He's still very young, and you could very easily see him in 2025 as your starting right fielder for the opening day New York Mets. With this being probably the biggest return a team's going to get at the deadline, let's really dive in and talk in detail about the trade grades I'm going to give and why each team gets them. For the Astros, I'm going to give them a B+. And this is mostly fueled by two things. The first being the fact that their farm system is incredibly weak, and I think they could have gotten other options that are cheaper and really not taken away from their top prospects in Ryan Clifford and Drew Gilbert. The second is if they really wanted Justin Verlander, and we all know that Justin Verlander has a love for Houston and Houston loves Justin Verlander, they could have just signed him in free agency. Granted, matching what the Mets gave him, I get it. That was a very steep price, and they got a lot of salary coverage to go and offset that. But at the end of the day, if you liked Ryan Clifford and if you liked Drew Gilbert, you didn't have to trade them away to get Justin Verlander. You could have just signed him. And especially because their prospect class is really weak and they don't have a very deep farm system, this leaves them a little bit depleted. Now, granted, the Astros have a lot of depth in the outfield in their farm system, so it makes sense to trade away from that depth. But this was a very steep price for a much-deserved Justin Verlander, especially with how the market was going. I just don't know if the Astros were the right team to go and trade for Justin Verlander at this point, when there are cheaper options available for a farm system that's already pretty depleted. Now for the Mets, when they traded away Max Scherzer for Luis Angel Acuna, I gave them an A in that trade. I think it made a lot of sense, especially if they weren't going to try and compete. And in this deal, I think there's no doubt that they got an even better return, and you have to bump them up to an A+ for that. Ryan Clifford and Drew Gilbert are two of my favorite minor league prospects. I have them both in the top 100, close to the top 50, and getting both those for a 40-year-old starting pitcher and $50 million, which granted, that is not chump change by any means, but if anyone can do it, the Mets are certainly one of the teams that can. You just don't simply say no. For the Mets, if they aren't going all in this year, it makes sense to get rid of a 40-year-old starting pitcher, and the fact that they were able to get two people that I am very high on and the industry is very high on, that's just a deal made in heaven. The Mets are definitely winning this trade deadline with setting themselves up for a lot of success in the long term. You have Pete Alonso if he doesn't get traded, Jeff McNeil, Francisco Alvarez, and Brent Batty are both two prospects who have been called up and done very well in the major leagues so far. Kodai Senga is doing very well this year as well. And with prospects like Mike Vassell coming up, it's definitely something that Mets fans should be excited about. You add Ryan Clifford and Drew Gilbert into the fold, and now you have two outfielders who are going to be the heart and soul of your team for a couple years. The Mets are in a great position right now to go and be effective in the next couple years. If you like this video, there should be two on both sides, left and right. You can go ahead and click and watch those, and a subscribe button right there in the middle. Hit that for more prospect and trade coverage, and stay tuned as the trade deadline comes to a roaring close in the last hour or so left of the deadline.